most influential people in my life was my Uncle Ray. My wife said to me many times, you know, Larry, you're not like your father. You're different. You're different than your father. And it wasn't until after we had been together maybe 15 years or so that she really got to know my Uncle Ray. And one day she said, that's who you're like. You're like your Uncle Ray. I can see it. And that's when I realized what a great influence my Uncle Ray played on my life. You know, he played with me. I mean, he shot marbles with me. He took me fishing. He took me hiking up in the mountains. He told me stories. I mean, he played cards with me. Although he took my money playing cards, you know, my father would give me 25 cents for lunch. And we would go to the Golden Star Cafe. And for 24 cents, you could have a bowl of rice and gravy. Now, my father would give me the 25 cents. And my uncle would have the cards. And say, you want to play? Okay, uncle. Sit down and we'd play Penny Ante, you know. And 90% of the time, he took my lunch money, you know. But I love being with my uncle. I love playing with him. I love talking to him. You know, one time I won $50 off my uncle, starting with a quarter. And it was just one of those days where you couldn't lose. I mean, we shot craps, we played low ball, we played everything, and he just said, man. And when he paid me, I had $50. I mean, 50, I was like, man. And I felt bad about it. And I said, here, uncle. He said, don't you dare do that. He said, if you lose, you don't cry. And if you win, you don't give the money back. You won that money. That's your money. You know, it was like, okay. And then, you know, he took me fishing. I mean, so many times we went to the mountains and I was this little pack mule. You know, he'd give me all the things to carry and stuff, the bait and everything, the tackle box and everything, and I just follow right behind him. And he took me to the movies, he took me to eat, he took me to nice places. My Aunt Vera, who was 100% Apache from the White Mountains Reservation in Arizona, had the biggest heart you can imagine. She had so much love in her, never said a bad word to me, always took me under her wing and come here, mijo. Even when there was times that she could see that there was things going on in my life, she would come here, mijo. Don't worry about it. I love you. I mean, that love stayed with me forever. When my uncle and aunt they were getting ready to pass away, I went to my uncle and I said, you know, you're more of a father to me than my father ever was. You did more for me than anybody did during that period of time, you know, and I just want to thank you. I'd go mow his lawn, I'd go trim his trees, and when he was done, he would say, how much I owe you? I'd say, nothing, man. I owe you, uncle. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be who I am today. There was something inside of me, even back then, that I had this reverence for the land, this reverence for the beauty around me. I saw it. I saw it. And when we played cowboys and Indians, everybody wanted to be cowboys. I wanted to be an Indian, man. I said, catch me if you can. And they never caught me. I took off running, and I'd end up back at home waiting for them because they couldn't catch me. But I always had this adventurous spirit inside of me that I didn't just want to sit down. I wanted to go look. I wanted to go explore. I wanted to see. I wanted to meet people. You know, I wanted to hear stories. You know, and that's why my grandfather told me all these stories, you know, when I was a young kid. And I loved to hear his stories, you know. And then when my mother left us and it was just with my father, I believe that was the saddest time in my life because I was just so, I remember coming home from school and opening the front door and smelling dinner cooking. My mother in there cooking dinner, and it was just like, oh wow, hi mom, and like I said, I was a mama's boy, oh come on, mijo, she taught me how to cook, and you want to make the carrots, oh sure, mom, and then when she left, after that, it was terrible with my father, and he, being that I now kind of understand post-traumatic stress disorder, I realized that my father was suffering, and I don't have hate for my father. I used to. I hated my father deeply for the way we were brought up and what was going on, and that's why when I got to be 16 years old, I told him how I felt, and that's when he threw me out of his house, But prior to that, it was just an existence. It was just trying to stay alive. That's all you did. You just tried to stay alive. I guess that was good for me because when I got to Vietnam, it's all it was about, was trying to stay alive, and you ate anything you could, you drank anything you could. I mean, you just stayed alive. That's what my childhood taught me, how the survival skills that didn't have to be pretty, didn't have to be delicious, it just had to be enough to keep you alive.